Good morning. How are you this fine Saturday morning? It's overcast. It looks like it could rain, but we'll find out. Anyhow, it's very pleasant. A good day for a walk. You may or may not remember, and I barely do, Robinson Crusoe. Remember the man who goes off and is isolated on an island and thus is an artistic cause of progeny that imitated and included Gilligan's Island. But I do remember pretty well, the launching point for the book, in which you could decide to be poor, you could decide to be rich, or you could live in a middle station of life in which the tensions and desperations of either extreme do not afford you any discomfort. And it's with that in mind that young Crusoe takes off at, I don't know, 18 years of age, after his dad gave him a speech about why he should go and study the law. Well, isn't that the way? And the refuge of the undecided is to become a lawyer. And as a result, we have a lot of really bad lawyers. And it's a challenging business to deal with people in conflict, which is at least what I do, trial lawyering. So he goes off and he's terrified and everything else. But he rejects the middle way of life. I don't know, Aristotle's media res, his center line. And so I read that as a kid, and everybody who reads it, I think, as you're launching on the adventure of life. But how many would suffer as Crusoe did, the isolation? And remember his, My Man Friday becomes a symbolic bridge, I think, between the civilized refuge from society and Man Friday, which is a more base kind of life. So where am I going with this? Where I'm going with this is, as a citizen, we don't want to be poor, and many of us think we want to be rich and devoted to every moment of our life figuring out how to increase our wealth, whether or not we can use it. And we see people buying $100 million homes and things like that. And we want to have a nice home, but I don't know, do you really need a $100 million home? You get invited to somebody else's $200 million home. So the middle station of life is a place to be, to manage health and friends and comfort and dissent and so forth. But very few of us think of life as just surviving. Life is existing and participating. And that participation these days is very challenging. Even though you're making a living and doing whatever you're doing, you worry how it may be compromised by bad political decisions, having people feathering their nest rather than actually serving you. And that's why many years later I read H.G. Wells' The New Machiavelli. And in there he has a great younger statement again when he's launching and he's talking to his uncle. And his uncle is kind of a middle station of life kind of guy. And he turns on him at one point, a man he loves, to say that he hates the rule of thumb world. What he and his kind of young people think is to challenge it, to force it to explain itself. For his impression of things as they are implies there has to be a better order. That's where we are. We have to have a better order. Politics as usual won't work now. And it won't work if our characterization of what a better political life is one that has some correspondence to the truth, that is backed up by standards of law, that a constitution is respected, that going around lying and lying under oath and trying to distort the world so that you can have your dictator instead of the people through elected representatives who actually represent them, run our government in accordance with these standards. But we don't have that. And I've hesitated to say this because Biden won the election because of who he is at a time when the country needed reassurance, and Trump didn't go limping off, which means we need a wartime president in a political sense. And this is not something that's going to go away, but the time is marching on. And I hesitate to talk about this because I don't want to be critical of Biden, but it's very hard to avoid, and I'm not alone. I mean, if you saw Representative Schiff had the same concern, that we go to the Saudis and we do a fist bump to the man that we're going to make a pariah. Instead, we're embracing him figuratively, metaphorically, because of a fist bump, which never should have happened. He should have sent somebody else. They should have been middling people going there. Also, doesn't it just twist your head around to you visit Israel, and I don't know what private promises and things you make to them to offset the fact that you're going to talk to the Saudis. And you had to deal with the fact that the Palestinians allegedly killed an Israeli reporter. It's an insane political equation, and you don't help it by going there and fist bumping a man who oversaw the dismemberment of a Washington Post journalist who was at an embassy, which should be a neutral ground, to be able to marry the woman he loved, who, by the way, has objected to what Biden did yesterday. I almost said Bush, his interesting idea. And so what is wrong with us? How do we feel we're going to work this? And, some say, well, he had to do it because we want to save us money at the pump. Whoa, stop the music. We're not going to see a drop of oil that's going to affect the pump prices that are now high. And the same is true with us opening up public lands or considering allowing more drilling in the Gulf and in Alaska. And what is that about? I don't know. Is it about campaign contributions? Is it connected to tolerating Manchin's energy policy, which is so far from green, it's rust brown? So we just have to push back on these guys. And Biden, look, people talk about replacing him. That's all fine and good. But an incumbent president with the expanse of power and recognition he has is not easily replaced and shouldn't be replaced as the candidate if he's up to it. And he has to also, though, he has to encourage us to believe in him and what he will do. And the only way to prove it will be different is to help in the midterms and to be different for the remaining 2 years. And we cannot have gaffes like this, which on the one hand, we're telling other nation states in NATO to buck up and we'll get them the oil. And then we go to the Middle East and we trade our character and our honor to this hairy-handed beast. And if you look at the picture that I posted, I'm not kidding, this guy's got hair all over his hand. I think it's Grindel. But Biden is not Beowulf, that's for sure. It's amazing the stirrings that happen when you think about these things in your mind. So, I don't know, I'm sorry, it's kind of a negative thinking, but it doesn't help me deal with the fact that Vice President Harris's staff is beginning to go out the door. It could be that they hoped she would run as president, or it could be they don't think they're going to win. Anyhow, it's a bad signal, but it is a signal. The other thing that I'm interested in is Griner. That's the woman from the Olympian basketball player. And according to the reports, she offered at trial evidence that the cannabis that she had in her vapor cartridges, 0.7 grams, if I remember, was for medicinal purposes, and they have a doctor's note to that effect. I don't know if they had a live doctor appear, and I'd sure like to see the date of that, and it was supposedly for pain, and I'm sure the Russians look at it askance as well. But assuming it's all true, and I had a case exactly like that, Yeah, that's a fair basis to defer a prosecution or to dismiss charges. And I did get that, but I'm telling you, it took 8 months and my client went crazy because in the states where she had pain, she didn't even have to have pain to get marijuana because it was California and Nevada, and recreational use is allowed. So you don't really need a prescription in those places. So that aside, the world is testing its centripetal force, holding it together, and we are the ones that are going to hold it together. But I do applaud Schiff speaking out, because I'm sure he took some flack for doing that. But we need more people to do that. So there you have it. In the meantime, I am in my green, moist woodland, my cathedral of trees, and I'll talk to you tomorrow. Bye-bye.